Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and today I'm reviewing USS Freedom by Dreamcraft Games. This game, where ISS Vanguard is aiming to be the Star Trek of board games. USS Freedom is aiming to be the Orville. And what I mean by that is the premise of this game is absolutely ridiculous. I usually do not dive into the theme of a game extensively. Ultimately, you see on the table space exploration. That should be good enough, right? Except it's not, because in this game we have Khal Drogo and Harry Potter in the same game together, which seems bizarre, and that is because it is. In this game, the very short theming condensed version of the game is that whole space battle, yada yada, space battle, yada yada, Empire, Doom, etc, etc. Spaceship lands on Earth at Comic-Con or some convention of sorts, and there has this dream engine, this engine that has the ability to master your thoughts, your powers, your wishes, or whatever. And so all these people at Comic-Con rushing onto the giant spaceship that crashed because, of course, it's special effects and they want to be involved, and they end up waking up and they all are the characters who they were dressed up as, and they all have the abilities of the characters that they were dressed up. And that theme is absolutely ridiculous, and yet it is whimsical, and I love it. It allows for this bizarre world in which you're going to have Aladdin facing off with Snape or whoever. I don't really know the various characters in this game. Aladdin and Cthulhu side by side fighting off alien races. That is not something you'll see often. And I know, for those who've watched some of my other videos, sometimes when you inject Cthulhu in themes, I don't always love it, but as long as the whole premise is ridiculous, it works for me. Past that, this game is going to take place over 36 missions as you attempt to slowly build up the confidence of the various alien races, because you will need them. You will need their help to go back and rescue and save Earth. And so there is an objective, there's a specific campaign or idea that you have to build your confidence in a race, get their help, do whatever, and you have 36 missions to do so, 36 missions to build that up and achieve success. Along the way, at any point, you can die. You have your various crew members. I don't know the exact count they're going to end up with, but you have 24 or more crew members in the game, and you're going to slowly but surely go through the game, and if they all die, then it's over, because when a character in this game dies, they are gone for the rest of the campaign. They are out, finished, or etc., whatever it is. And so you have to be aware of that permadeath of your characters. And throughout this campaign, you're going to go through various encounters. Each of those 36 missions or games or whatever is going to represent an encounter. And encounters generally take roughly 45 minutes to an hour. Some are drastically shorter because some of them could have simple, you have an encounter and you walk out without even engaging in a space battle or a land battle in this game. And the sequencing is fairly basic. At first, all you're going to do is you're going to move the various ships on this sideboard, on this galactic interstellar map. You're going to move them around following a basic set of rules. Then you will choose where to navigate the USS Freedom, and from there, depending on the surrounding hexes, you will lay out different cards that will represent the possible encounters you can have. And so, once you see the encounter options, you will take an encounter, you'll move your ship in that direction, and proceed to have the encounter. And encounters can be as simple as a text-based encounter where something happens and it's over, and those will be like 5-10 minutes at most. Or alternatively, you can have a full-on land encounter on this side land board. Alternatively, you can have a full-on space encounter. These will be the dominant encounters you have, in which you are navigating your spaceship trying to survive. And then sometimes they have dual encounters, part spaceship, part land. And so that structure is going to be deal with the interstellar board, then come on over here to have your main encounter, whatever that is, have the encounter after effects, and move on to the next mission. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. I have found myself knocking out 2 or 3 missions at a time before resorting to the save system of the game, the save system this game has. And this is the part where I'm going to tell you a lot of the things I liked and didn't like about the game. But to be very clear, I really like this game. I am overall thrilled with this game. I have complaints, but note that, first of all, it's a prototype, and second of all, the complaints are annoying, frustrating side things that do not stop me from enjoying the game, but are inhibiting factors. So I want to be very clear, this game is 100% being added to my collection from the very first play I have had of this game. It is whimsical, it is adorable, it gives me powers and abilities. You know what? Let me go through them all. So to begin with, that puzzly gameplay. The gameplay in this game represents a puzzle. You are navigating your spaceship. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to focus overall, for the sake of brevity, have you watched my videos? For the sake of brevity, I'm going to overall focus on this spaceship over here. Those are going to be the main encounters you have. And what you're ultimately trying to do is you're going to have an encounter with some sort of alien craft. In this case, I'm currently engaged in an encounter with this guy over here, the Aeon's Yama class. And what we're going to do over here is we're going to take turns back and forth. There is a sequence to each battle. And so to begin with, I'm going to flip over one of these chips, which is going to represent the action, one of 4 possible actions that the spaceship is going to take. In this case, they're going to go ahead and fire 3 missiles at the ship. And the indicator on this card says they're going to fire those missiles at my lower left quadrant over here. And so we're going to take 3 missile chips, putting them face down, representing unspecified, or not unspecified, but rather unknown amounts of damage that my spaceship will take if those missiles are still around at the end of the encounter. From there, I'm going to navigate and move my characters around the ship in order to try to do different things, which are mostly going to be dealing with my thrusters, dealing with my shields, my attack, and generating energy. So we'll generate energy over here, we'll take a thruster action, various cubes will be moving around the board, and that's going to be the main puzzly aspect of the game. Because you have to figure out how to optimize the creation of your energy, and then the utilization of the energy in other areas of the ship. And so in this case, I'm going to push my engines or whatnot. I'll have an alien thruster chip over here. We'll flip it over. We'll dedicate 6 thrusters, let's say, and then we'll see if we have generated enough thrust to perform an extra action. And in this case, we have. And so the extra action we're going to choose to take, there are 3 kinds of extra actions. You can try to flee the battle entirely, which can be useful if you're losing horribly, because if your ship dies, all the characters on your ship will die. Or alternatively, you can try to outmaneuver any one section of missiles. So in this case, we had a success. I'm going to outmaneuver these missiles, which means they won't even hit our shields. We'll have completely avoided them. Think of your ship pushing forward in battle as a bunch of missiles are chasing down your ship. Or alternatively, you can gain a vantage point, which basically means you'll have a higher chance of hitting the enemy doing the battle, doing the attack phase. Speaking of which, after we're done with that, we'll move over to the attack phase where we'll spend some energy from there to potentially fire upon an area. And in this case, we unfortunately missed. You see, I could have gone with a vantage point, which would have given me a higher chance of hitting one of those quadrants. And during the course of the game, you will have opportunities to upgrade your ship, to add more and more shields, engines, shooting, attack stations or whatnot to your ship, which will increase your ability to actually encounter the higher levels of enemies that you'll have a chance of facing in this game. Once we're done with the battle phase, we'll move over to where we can generate shields, which will help protect us for when we inevitably do not outrun those missiles. And then finally, we'll rinse and repeat, continue the cycle until eventually we have done enough damage to the ship to destroy it, or something bad has happened to us, and that would not be fun. And so the puzzle being presented here is one of optimization, using each of your characters' default stats, as well as the locations on your ship itself, as well as the abilities on all of your characters. Each character comes into play with 4 potential abilities. Those abilities will be activated depending on the various energy or whatever, the crystals that you draw from your pouches. And so you'll be able to activate their different abilities in different tiers to try to slightly optimize. Some of those abilities will be default stats that will just slightly upgrade a regular stat of the character. Others do powerful things like avoiding entire sections of damage, moving characters across the ship more easily, doing all kinds of different things, striking the enemy ship for 5 damage straight out with some sort of photon blast or whatever it is. There are a lot of options in this game, and between the puzzle of the gameplay and the powers and abilities of all the characters, I am already pulled in. I love powers and abilities, and I love a puzzle that is given to me. I love the fact that I have to optimize around a set of constraints in order to walk out of that battle unscathed. This really ends up feeling like a space exploration game. I am not even a Star Trek fan, nor am I an Orville fan in particular. Both of them were fine. I did like the Star Trek movies. Those I was fine with. But in any case, for all the people who just walked away from the video in outright disgust that I like the movies over the TV show. Listen, I just didn't watch the movies I didn't watch the TV shows growing up. It is what it is. In any case, I really feel like you are having these space tactical battles in this game between the options of trying to sit there and say, let's just take on the missiles because we need to destroy that enemy ship, versus trying to outmaneuver them or power up your shield. You can have more defensive battles that will last longer, or you can have slightly riskier battles, but where you can push that edge and slowly take out your opponent. It really genuinely feels like you are having space combat in this game. And the characters and their powers as the way the ship and the characters will progress throughout the game, because in this game, the characters never really unlock abilities that they didn't have access to before, but rather as the game levels up, what you're really leveling up is your bag full of crystals and the distribution of the different colors of crystals, which will allow you to access characters' higher level abilities. And so that's going to give you simultaneously from the very beginning of the game, you'll have access to all of Khal Drogo's 4 levels abilities, but you're only going to be able to activate those higher ones infrequently depending on the crystals you draw. versus later game, you'll feel much more powerful as you activate your character's higher level abilities on a far more frequent basis. And that permadeath of the characters, it feels so rewarding, as permadeath often does, because there is a sense of urgency in this game. There's a genuine sense of consequence as you sit there and figure out, are you willing to sacrifice certain characters because it will help you survive this mission? Do you run away entirely with your ship? But you had so much fun with Khal Drogo, because Khal Drogo is amazing. I probably can't actually call him Khal Drogo. He's really just labeled as a Scythian, but this guy knew what he was dressing up as. In any case, that permadeath of the characters is impactful, and it is fun, and the game is not so long as to be intensely powerful. Don't get me wrong, 36 missions sounds like a lot, but when you're knocking out 3 at a time, that means you're basically sitting down for 12 different play sessions, which is not terrible. It's a campaign game still. It's not a legacy game. It is a campaign game, so factor that in as well. Overall, that campaign is not overwhelming, and aside from that, the art in the game and the production of the game is overly across the board very well done. The art is gorgeous. The character art is amazing. The miniatures for the spaceships over here are great. The interstellar map, I feel, is a bit lacking in both artwork and accessibility. We'll get into that soon. And then lastly, for myself, because I'm a miniatures person, I wish there were miniatures in this game. I have seen hints, potential hints, on the Kickstarter page. This is a Kickstarter game, currently on Kickstarter, link in the description down below. I've seen hints that there may be miniatures, but I do not know yet. I hope there are, because, don't get me wrong, the stats on these standees are very helpful, but then again, I'm often looking at the characters so often for their abilities anyway that I don't mind checking their stats or figuring out some sort of option. I don't really know. In any case, past that, as far as things that I didn't like, because so far, this game is immensely fun. That puzzle, the abilities, the campaign, the permadeath, all these things are so much fun in this game. And yet the rest of the game kind of distracts me from that core game. I said I don't mind the campaign, and I don't, but that also does not mean that I love it. The whole system going on over here, the whole idea that you are slowly trying to build up your influence with different alien cultures in order to win the game, the whole navigation of this tactical board, all these other things over here ultimately feel a bit tedious. They feel like they are distracting me from the game I am trying to have. It is basically, 10, 15 minutes of trying to manage a separate engine over here and then try to take into account, but I have to sell goods here and pick up goods there and slowly raise my influence with that culture and deal with this. All these things, they don't actually take that long to deal with. But it's a mental aspect of the game that I have no interest in. I don't really care what's going on in the sideboard. I just like the encounters. The flip side of that is that without the sideboard, without the progression, I would never level up my ship. I would never up the stats in my bag. So the game does need to give you a sense of moving forward. I just, personally speaking for myself, I just don't care about this stuff over here. It's not bad. It's not why I'm playing the game. The lower level abilities of the characters in this game are kind of boring and the same, because most of the lower level abilities of the characters are all just minor stat upgrades. Usually you have a 3 strength. Well, now for this encounter, you'll have a 4 strength. They're functional. They definitely help you win these battles, but they're just kind of boring and samey. Now, don't get me wrong. It's okay because the higher level abilities get more interesting, but across the board, the lower level abilities were just not really particularly that interesting. The lack of miniatures for the characters I already touched upon, which is fine, again, but it is what it is. And then lastly, the other big thing I'll mention is that over here on this whole save map over here, what you're going to do is there is a save system where you put pegs down and deal with this and all that, and then you put your stuff into a campaign pouch. The save system is not the worst, but it also feels a bit more tedious than I would like. As far as things I can see other people not liking in this game, there's going to be a few, and these all don't really bother me, and I'll get into for each one why. To begin with, the theme is wonky. It is wonky as all get out. You have, like I said, Harry Potter and a Transformer and Aladdin and who knows who all fighting together on this ship, which is bizarre, and that's weird. It's the Comic-Con of space games, cosplay heroes. It's a weird theme, and it wouldn't pull me in, and it wouldn't, by the way. If you just told me about this theme without any more context, without me trying the game, seeing the game, or anything else, I would just say, sounds like a mess. I don't really need that kind of thing. In general, when there's been too much of an over-mashing up of themes, think Duel of Ages or Hero Escape or whatnot, those things tend to not pull me in, and for some reason, this one works for me. Maybe it's just because I've played it. I don't know. But whatever it is, this theme over here does not bother me. But I can understand that it would be polarizing for some. And I can understand why it might seem like a turnoff, even though I think it would be a turnoff for me. And yet it actually isn't. The steps you take each round can be a little tedious until you build up the flow. Now, I'm not referring to this board over here, I already touched upon that. Rather, I mean that even within each encounter, there are a bunch of steps you have to take until you get to a flow where you're actually really taking or dealing damage to the enemy ship. And the first time you do it, it's not a big deal. The second time, it's not a big deal. But the more you play the game, the more I can feel that every single encounter has a little bit of grunt work built into the encounters to get to where you need to be in that encounter. Each encounter takes 45 to 60 minutes, and that first 10-15 is probably just getting up to speed of distributing your characters, taking a few basic actions, no real change. And even in subsequent encounters as you go through the game, it will feel a bit samey. The thing that's going to mix it up primarily is the difference of the alien you're fighting and their differences they bring to the table, because some aliens, for instance, the alien I'm fighting right now has the concept of a missile that is unavoidable. You cannot push your engines and avoid it. Rather, you have to be prepared to block all the damage that missile does, or else it's going to kill all the heroes on your ship. And that completely changes up your strategy, because if you were focusing on a strategy that was primarily based on your thrusters and outmaneuvering missiles, suddenly you have to change that strategy to account for the differences in the unique aliens. But in between each encounter, the things that are going to make it feel different are going to be the aliens, as well as your heroes and the abilities you choose to activate that encounter. And those would be the things I can see being a problem for others. But like I said, for me, so far, I'm like 6-7 missions in. I have not finished the campaign, and it's been a blast so far. As far as my final thoughts on USS Freedom, I really like the game. I like the characters and abilities. I like the whimsical theme, and I like the balancing of different aspects in order to survive each and every combat. The gem system I can take or leave. On the one hand, I think it is fun to be able to have access to character abilities early on. On the other hand, it does leave a slight lack of the idea that I'll never get to a point in this game where I unlock Harry Potter's ultimate ability halfway through the game. It's not going to happen, because in theory, I can unlock it the very first round of the game. So it's a pro and con. I understand why it exists. It works well, but yeah, pro and con for that. As far as longevity, this game is staying in my collection for now. This game is, like I said, thoroughly enjoyable. My biggest problem with the game is going to be the table space it needs and the other aspects of management that this game has. I kind of want the ability to have one-shot adventures in this game. I want the accessibility of just pulling it out, setting it up, getting it going, with reducing half the table space by not even having this stuff on it, and just getting going. So I like it, but I'm only likely to pull it out right now if I'm able to get 2, 3, maybe 4 missions done before I wrap it up. Otherwise, as of right now, I'd rather play something else. So it has this weird aspect of both being an incredibly fun experience, but with enough table space and other things to manage that I'm only really going to pull it out if I'm able to knock out 3 or 4 games. This game, more than any other game that I can think of, could really benefit from an app. And I am someone who does not like apps in games, but think Gloomhaven Helper, that kind of app. It's not that I want the app going on in the game, but rather I would love an app that simply tracks all the side stuff. It tracks where the ships are, what your influence with each alien race is, what goods you have in your bag. I want to focus on this primary main game over here, enjoying that experience without having to deal with all the side stuff, both in terms of table space and actual management. Overall, I love this game, but I just want it to be a bit more accessible. Now, understand very clearly this is a prototype. From any number of different things going on, some small aspects of the text on this board being a bit too small, or different aspects of accessibility, the cards are actually fine, I don't know why I'm saying that. Whatever it is, all these things are still very much in the prototype stage, and even in the prototype stage, I highly recommend you check out USS Freedom, see if it's a game for you, but it really does give you that space battle exploration in a wonky and funny theme. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions about my experience, anything I can answer. I will, as always, try to, reply to as many comments as I possibly can. And until next time, have a good one.